Hello, Data Standard community. I'm your host, Shayna Weldon, and this is the Data Standard audio experience. Today, we have a great guest. We are bringing you Mark Cusack, a Chief Technology Officer at Yellowbrick Data. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shayna. Very nice to be here.
Thank you for being here today. To start off, can you please just introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. I'm Mark Cusack, so I'm CTO at Yellowbrick. And Yellowbrick is a cloud data warehouse company. And our data warehouse software is rather different in that it can run on public clouds, but also on private clouds in customers' own data centers too. So for actually, I would say kind of three things that set Yellowbrick apart from the competition. And by the competition, you might know about Snowflake and Redshift and things like that. But one is our kind of outstanding price performance. The second is our ability to kind of put data warehousing wherever you want to run it, even in a hybrid kind of configuration, and our ability to process real-time data and analytics very, very rapidly.
Thank you for that background. And regarding you, I know you are most recently the VP of Data Analytics at Teradata. Before that, you were VP of the Analytical Ecosystem at Teradata. And going back even further, you were a Chief Architect for IoT Analytics at Teradata. And even going further back, you were also a founding developer at Rainstor and were once a PhD physicist. This is insane. What was your experience moving through all those titles?
Well, if we go one step further back than that, I used to work in Radio Shack on a Saturday morning as well.
Let's just take it all the way back.
I mean, it's been an incredible journey, and I've been very, very fortunate over the career I've had to try out lots of different things. But I do think starting out in academia and being able to really understand the scientific method and the approach you take when you're developing a new idea and understanding how you go about determining whether that idea works or not. You know, you think in physics, what experiment can I perform on a wet Monday morning that's going to validate the theory I've just come up with? And you have a good sort of critical thinking and critical mind. And I think that's kind of really important, regardless of which career you go in. But it's very important when you get into the world of business as well, which I'm in today, whereby when you're making a new investment as a CTO in a particular product line or what have you got the data to back up your convictions? Are you going to spend the company's money wisely? What's the return on the investment you get? And so having that critical sort of thinking has kind of been a part of all of my career, whether it's leaping out of academia and working actually at the Ministry of Defense, where I worked after I did my PhD, which was a wonderful environment to do research in, very applied research. And then from there, we spun out into a startup company called Rainstor early in the 2000s. And that's really where I got into the whole hardcore data and analytics and business world of data warehousing.
Wow. Specifically, what is your role at Yellowbrick Data?
Well, because we're a fairly late stage established startup, I'm lucky in that my role actually spans lots of different topics. And this is true from the startup world, which is another wonderful reason why as many folks as possible should experience being in a startup, because you get to wear so many different hats. And the job that you do is whatever needs doing at that point in time. And so there's a bit of an element of that, but we're a much more established company here at Yellowbrick. So my role is to maintain and build out the roadmap for our data warehouse product. So I'm in charge of the product management side of things as well, but I've also got a hand in determining the overall technical strategy that we take for the company. I also help by speaking a lot with customers, prospects, analysts, all sorts of manner of individuals that are either consumers of data warehousing or influencers on there. And so I pull all these sort of ideas and things and requirements that they want together to help to shape where we're going to take the product next.
Okay. Using your technical abilities, I know recently there's been a huge shift in the market to the cloud. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and of course, and we see this in data warehousing, but you see it in kind of every aspect of cloud, and things like the pandemic have almost accelerated that rush to close down your own data centers and rely more on public clouds for a whole range of services. I mean, look at us using Zoom right now. I mean, some of the critical infrastructure we do to drive business and make our businesses and maintain our businesses is moving into the cloud. And people want to operate and consume new services very simply as a service, and they don't want to have to run a lot of these critical infrastructure services themselves. And data warehousing is no different. We're seeing a huge shift in mindset from even only a few years ago, where companies would be happy to run their data and analytics processing in their own data centers. But now they're thinking about how is that really a core skill set that we want to maintain and employ based on and hire on? And can we give a lot of that over to cloud infrastructure? But there are other reasons why people are moving to the cloud, of course. They see the agility and elasticity that cloud brings. They want new ways of consuming and buying things like data warehouses and advanced analytics. They want to be able to consume that on demand. They don't want to have to pay a chunk of money up front to kind of consume it. There's all sorts of other things they're interested in: the separation of compute and storage, the ability that you have a wide range of other ecosystem services that you can tie in to add value to your analytics. And then you can also throw in things like data sovereignty, latency, security reasons. There's a whole host of activities. Perceived cost savings for all moving into the cloud.
So there's this huge market shift. Companies are trying to adapt. How can they modernize their data warehouses?
Yeah, and I get this question all the time, and we get it from a variety of different enterprises that are usually at different stages of a broader digital transformation, where they're kind of trying to operationalize data throughout their business. But very often they've employed data warehousing platforms that have been around for many, many years. And the trouble with some of these platforms is they get so ingrained in the business because all of the data pipelines that feed into these things, all these ETL jobs that build up, all of the kind of downstream applications that are wired into these things, and they become very, very sticky. But at some point they end up slowing your business down because they can't perform fast enough. They're not scalable to grow as your business grows. And so increasingly companies that are stuck on legacy data warehouse platforms are looking to modernize. And there's a very, very core reason for this, because think about a data warehouse, and it essentially often has what you might think of as the crown jewels data within your business. It's the most important data estate in your enterprise. It's powering your supply chains. It's powering your billing. It's powering so many other predictive and descriptive kind of analytics applications for many companies. And so modernizing that critical infrastructure is really important.
Do your clients ever ask you what the future of cloud data warehousing is?
Many, many times, exactly. And it's partly because they're looking at their choices for replatforming, perhaps from moving on-prem into the cloud, and taking that chance, that movement from on-prem into the cloud, to also change their data warehouse. It makes sense. If you're going to move all of your analytics infrastructure up there, what can you modernize while you're doing it? And so, when clients talk to me about it, I say, well, what you want to look at is a technology that's going to be future-proof, that will elastically scale as you scale, but not elastically scale at an enormous price point. The beauty of the cloud is you can scale to effectively infinite quotes, sort of amounts of compute and storage capacity. But that only makes sense if your wallet is infinitely deep as well, right? So cost control when you move to the cloud is really, really important. And so one of the concerns with the current breed of cloud data warehouses today that I see is they haven't got a handle on that cost control. What they do is make it extremely easy to spin up new data warehousing capacity in the cloud and grow and shrink that very elastically. And that is exactly what people need. But they don't do that at a cheap price point. I mean, and they don't take a page out of the legacy of on-prem. Actually, this is quite interesting, because if you can imagine, you've got infinite quotes resources in the cloud. So why would the cloud companies bother optimizing their software? Their answer is, if you need more capacity, just buy more. Whereas in the old days, for those companies that had their own data centers that were literally fixed in size, they couldn't elastically scale stuff, right? So
Interesting.
the software they ran had to be designed to be extremely efficient. And so the older generation of data warehouses, the best of breed of those, were very, very good at mixing high concurrency with complex workloads and squeezing the most you could get out of the CPUs and the memory and the storage you had available. In the public cloud, the vendors today aren't doing that. They're just saying, just throw more boxes, throw more instances of the problem, right? So in my mind, you needed to look for a solution that combines the best of those worlds, best of breed in terms of efficiency and best of breed in terms of agility and elasticity. And that's actually what we focused our strategy at Yellowbrick on. And our roadmap really lays out a way that we've taken the best of breed ideas from some of the historical data warehousing approaches and software within databases, and added elasticity and all of those all the goodness that cloud brings you. So companies can kind of scale to the demands of their business, but they know they're not going to get an angry phone call from their CFO asking, what are you doing? What's your spend on the cloud? Why is it like this?
So what's the main challenge that companies are facing right now regarding moving data? I know you briefly talked upon it, but what do you think the greatest challenge is?
Well, I mean, the number one challenge is having to move data in the first place. And companies are really struggling with this. And some of the largest companies I've spoken to, very, very large US banks, the problem comes around from data silos. And so I spoke to one bank that had something like they'd calculated 15,000 individual silos of data throughout their business. And so this is where the problem of moving data becomes, because obviously to power better, more accurate, predictive and prescriptive analytics, you want to pull in data from more and more sources, but these sources are scattered throughout. And you also end up copying data around, and copying has a problem because it can lead to data drift. You've created a copy of an original data set, and if that data set has changed, how do you know you've now got an up-to-date copy? So quality issues start to come into play if you move data around. And there's a well-worn statistic that a lot of data scientists think or use, and that's probably 80% of a data scientist's time is actually spent moving data before they actually get to do any of the really fun stuff, any of the modeling or scoring or inference and things like that. And so data movement is a real problem. And so I think we've moved away from the old school idea necessarily of centralizing everything in a single repository and getting away from these silos, but thinking more smartly about the silos we have and how they can be individually integrated and managed at the point of data generation, managed by the owners of that data, the people that are responsible and understand that data. So the kind of new models, and you'll hear things like data mesh spoken as a model of this, is the idea of data as a product, and individual lines of business who generate data should own that data and be responsible for the through life support of that data, and provide the APIs that other parts of the business can share. So that's a long ramble, but that's, I think, one of the reasons for why data movement has been a bit of a problem.
So the greatest challenge of moving data is moving data itself. That's what I got. Sounds about right. So you mentioned data analytics. In your opinion, what exactly is that?
What is data and analytics? I mean, you've got the purpose of analytics is to turn data into some actionable information you can make a business decision on, right? And traditionally, data warehouses have been very, very focused on what's called descriptive analytics, looking at deep history of data and going back multiple quarters or seasons within a particular retailer's seasonal sort of change and swings and roundabouts of how their business operates, and understand what patterns can we learn from the past that we can apply in the future and do differently, and things like, well, we all know that people buy more during Black Friday week. What are their buying habits? What would we do differently to influence their habits? And so that's what data warehouses are really used for. They run analytics that generates actionable insights from that historical data. But when you look towards more advanced analytics, that's also going and saying, okay, well, how can we, given some starting data, use regression techniques to predict some values in the future? How can I predict what next year's seasonal forecast is going to look like in terms of my revenue. And then you go one step forward and you look at prescriptive analytics, which is actually not only predict what's going to happen, but give me some recommendations, automated recommendations on what I should do as a business owner to tune the dials to improve my business's outlook. So that's really what data analytics is all about. But the really exciting area is where all of these areas come together, where we start to see data warehousing, which has the most valuable data in your business, starting to be combined with more advanced ML and AI techniques to get towards this predictive and prescriptive future.
Can you operationalize analytics using AI and ML?
Well, there are two major problems with. I've got my 3 fingers up. I'll get the third of these. So when you think about operationalizing advanced analytics, I mentioned the first big problem was that data movement, that data preparation problem. So you've got data from lots of sources in various formats, not particularly normalized or whatever, but you need input from all of these sources to come up with some predictive analytics. You want to build a model that can do some predictions, some sort of demand chain forecasting or supply chain forecasting or whatever. And so you want to prepare that data, which means you've got to transform it into a form that you can actually apply a model to. And that's the big data preparation part, where 80% of people's problems are spent on that. Then the final problem is, after you've created a model, you've trained it, and you're in a position you can do some scoring, is how you actually operationalize that. And that is where a lot of data scientists kind of run into trouble, because what the big danger is that their activities of going through this first stage of data preparation, then doing their model development, is this all ends up with just a one-off science experiment. And so you need to think very, very carefully about how your analytics are going to get deployed. What pipeline are you going to put in place where you can publish updates to your model? It's almost like the world of DevOps and CI/CD pipelines that we all are pretty familiar with today when we develop software and publish software updates. You need to be thinking about how you're publishing updates to your running models, how they're being maintained permanently and being used in all the time to generate new insights, rather than being a one-off snapshot in time kind of problem. And I mentioned that third one because I kind of skipped over the model training sort of thing, because that's actually the easy bit. The easy bit that everyone focuses on is, okay, which supervised or unsupervised algorithm am I going to pick? Am I going to do some k-means clustering or some linear regression? And everyone goes to what's the cool bit of data science, which is selecting algorithms and things like that. But the hard parts are preparing the data and operationalizing it.
What excites you the most about data?
Oh, I mean, what excites me most is helping customers get a competitive edge by being able to analyze data faster than the other folks in their particular markets. And we've got countless examples where we've done this at Yellowbrick. One of our customers is runs an advertising platform for banks. And they had huge problems because they're selling advertising and running campaigns from their legacy data warehouse that were powering marketing campaigns, but they couldn't react quickly enough to determine whether a campaign that was in flight, a real-time digital marketing campaign that was throwing up ads on websites, on bank sites, was being effective. And they couldn't tell, because their analytics was too slow, about whether or not their upsell ideas and cross-sell ideas were actually being effective. And we were able to come into that particular business, replace their existing platform with ours. And it meant that things that would take them kind of over a day to understand in terms of their analytics, we could take that down to a matter of minutes. So they could tune a campaign while it was in flight. So they didn't waste a whole day on an unsuccessful digital campaign. Because they didn't see the outcome or the problems until it was too late. And so we've got lots of examples like that where we're minimizing the time to value out of data. And that data without the analytics is pretty much useless. And so that's what really excites me about it is the combination of the two.
You've shared so much today. And for those that are listening, how can they get connected with you?
Yeah, you can reach me at LinkedIn at Mark Cusack and at Twitter at Mark Cusack. So it's very easy to find me out there. And I'd love to chat. And if you've got, and anyone's got any questions around data analytics or their careers and wants some advice, I'm more than happy to offer my opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure those are listening would love to. I know I would love to speak with you more about this. For more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io. This episode was also sponsored by Pandio, and they're innovating the tech space. You can learn more about their work at pandio.com. But Mark, again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Same here, Shayna. Great to talk with you.